The phone number is for the Office of Residence Life is 704-378-1099.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have a question. I'm a parent of a sophomore. And my question is, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, so this is my biggest thing about just being on campus, because we do know that, college students have a certain liberties that younger kids don't with the supervision piece. And my concern is when she comes back to school, if she comes back to school, just the contact thing. I know that they're adults, but they still think they're invincible. And I just don't want to send her back to a petri dish. What is the supervision? What do you guys have in store to make sure they're following rules even after hours?
Yeah. So I'll take that, Mr. Dorsey. And so that is a concern for many of us. And hence, one of the things that we are instituting is our social compact or our university pledge. And so while every member of the community has a responsibility to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to help reduce the spread of the virus, if there's cases where students are not adhering to our policies that are in the handbook, that are mentioned in the pledge or in the addendum to the student handbook that we'll publish in January, students will have to have a conversation with the Office of Student Conduct. And our hope is that we don't have to send a student home because that person has not been adhering to the policies. But if we need to remove a student from campus, we're not playing baseball. It won't be 3 strikes, you're out. If you do not do what is expected of you, that's against the pledge, we're going to remove students from campus because we're taking this very, very seriously. So we all have a social responsibility, but then as administrators, as faculty and staff, we'll monitor those things, but knowing that we can't be everywhere at every time. And so students are going to have to also, if they see something, say something, and we will address it as soon as possible.
And one more question. As far as the students going in and out of campus and people, I did hear them saying they're going to minimize people coming in inside the school. So that's a concern of mine too, as well as when they leave and who they're exposed to, and then when they come back in and who they're exposed to. And they don't always have to have the symptoms. They can be asymptomatic. So, it's a lot of variables. I work for a school, so I understand what you guys are doing. I just know that college is a little different because it's more freedoms for those students, and I'm just concerned about that. Because hearing all the other colleges sending kids back home because they're catching COVID, that's a big concern of mine.
So this is Ms. McAllister. One of the things I talked about is education, but perhaps I didn't speak to is the different areas where they will be getting education. The residence life staff will be reaching out to students even before they come to campus to talk to them and educate them about the behaviors that they should avoid, so to be able to keep themselves safe and their friends and their faculty and staff members safe. And we're going to also provide an online course for the students to take. And we believe that we understand that young people think that they're invincible. We do, we get that. But we believe that hearing the message over and over from people all over the campus will help students to find a path to operate safely here on campus. But we have considered this from both the standpoint of the students and the parents. And many of us are parents, and we understand your concerns and your apprehensions. But we believe that our students who said that they want to be here will abide by the rules that will allow them to stay here.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm a parent of a freshman, and my question is regarding the when they're in the single dorms, about the bathroom situations and washing clothes and things like that. How is that going to work? Just curious.
Yeah, thank you for that question. In the restrooms where there's single occupancy and they have communal bathrooms, we will have plexiglass between each sink. We have housekeeping staff that will clean the restrooms several times during the day. We're asking students to also have their cleaning products so that when they go in, they can wipe down as they use the restrooms as well. And so, as Ms. McAllister said, it's going to be a continuous education from the residence life staff. The residence life staff is a live-in staff that live in the residence halls along with the students. We also have resident assistants that live on the floor with the students. So it'll be a continuous conversation throughout the semester.
Hello,
Thank you.
hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I understand the blue, white, and I forget the other color. But if you have a student, incoming freshman, who just completely does not feel comfortable with returning to campus at this time, do they have to present something medical for that rationale, or will you just accept that they just would like to remain online?
So this is Dr. Morgan. I would ask that you submit those particular requests to I'm going to put it in the chat, svpaa at jcsu.edu, and we will consider those on a case-by-case basis.
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes, I'm going to put an email address in the chat. And if you would, you could follow up and send that information to this particular email address. And my office will consider all of those requests on a case-by-case basis. I'm Dr. Morgan. I'm the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs.
So are you saying it is mandatory for them to be at school and circumstantial, you'll decide if they can go virtually?
I'm saying the campus is open, and we're not saying that all students must attend classes in a face-to-face environment. So no, I'm just asking you if you would submit your requests to SVPAA. If it falls outside of those three that I outlined, one of them was CDC guidelines or health reasons where they would submit you would submit a request to the Student Health Center. That's one. Or if it's American Disabilities Act and you would submit a request to the Office of Access and Equity. A third component is if there are some academic reasons, the students may actually need to remain where they are because they're engaged in an internship, for example. So anything that's outside of those three, I would ask that you send an email to svpaa at jcsu.edu. And I'm going to put the email address in the chat, and then we will have a conversation. Someone will be reaching out to you for more information, and we'll follow up on your request. But I'm not saying that it's mandatory that the students come to campus in the spring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, I missed the dates for when the student athletes come back basketball. Like, do y'all have another meeting to talk about those specific requirements and how we're gonna do and move during this time?
Yes, make sure that you stay in contact with your coaches. Are you a basketball player?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, make sure you stay in touch with your coaches and they will enlighten you on that. But the date is going to be roughly around November the 29th. This is fluid, so it may change, but right now the date is right around November the 29th, where the athletes will come in. Of course, you have to be financially cleared, and there will be testing upon your arrival.
Thank you.
You're
I have a
welcome.
quick question. As far as registration is concerned, when they register for classes, do they have to meet with the advisor?
They do not have to meet with their advisor.
Okay.
When they do register for classes, we would encourage them to, as much as possible, to make sure that they enroll in all gold cohort classes or all blue cohort classes, or if they fall into, we will automatically, if they are eligible, put them in the white cohort classes. But if they're registering themselves, try to register all blue cohort or all gold cohort.
Classes blue or gold.
Classes, yes, gold or blue. And they will be able to see it when they register, whether it's a gold class or a blue class.
Hello?
Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all right, you're welcome.
Hello?
So now we're going to have a few questions from our Student Government Association President, Anthony Edwards. He's been monitoring the meeting via YouTube and has been collecting questions from YouTube. Anthony?
Hello. So one of the questions I did not think hear being asked or answered is, will the financial aid advisors be in office for spring clearance to ensure that everyone is able to join, have their classes be able to be registered for next semester? And is there a date provided for when that process is starting?
Good evening. This is Dr. Moses, the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management. Financial aid counselors will be in their offices. We're encouraging students to please contact their financial aid counselor via the email, and I'll put it in the chat. And also, financial aid counselors will be hosting virtual one-on-one sessions, as well as phone conversations via telephone conversations for students. But they are in their offices currently, but we are encouraging all the students in order for them to speak with a financial aid counselor to email them and or schedule a virtual meeting or call them on the phone.
Thank you. Anthony, are there any other questions?
I think someone asked in terms of I think social distancing for those who are staying on campus, how are either visitor situations, I think for like during the school year, how are visitors going to be tracked, or are there visitors going to be allowed inside the dorms?
Hi, Anthony. Yes, we're going to have a series of Zoom meetings where we'll cover visitation and what is expected of students while living in the residence halls. And so we'll have several, and we'll post those through JCSU News so that you can get online and find out more about living and learning in the residence halls and visitation.
Mr. McPherson, if I can add to that, just so that we're clear, because this is a non-negotiable. There is no guest visitation in the residence halls beginning November when our men's and women's basketball teams check in. No guest visitation in the residence halls. So that means if you live in Greenfield, you cannot go visit someone who lives in Sanders. That means if you have a friend that goes to UNC Charlotte, they cannot come to campus and visit you at JCSU. This is one of our measures to help reduce the spread of the virus on our campus. So there is no guest visitation, even within the residence hall. You live in Greenfield on the first floor, you cannot go visit your peers who live down the hall or on another floor within the same residence hall. Just want to make sure that we're clear on our guest visitation policy for the spring semester.
I have another question.
Okay.
What about hotels as far as coming from out of town? Do you have a list of hotels that you would recommend for a family to stay in?
Hi, yes, we do. And we've worked on some discounts for our families. They will be published on the events page at Johnson C. Smith University. If you will, let's see, what we'll do is we will send out, I guess, an information, because I don't think we put it in the guide, the student guide. But we can post that on our website so that our families know about hotels that are willing to offer discounts. And that's going to be important because if you come in and you have an early check-in time, it'll be important that you get here early and are well rested before you get moved into the residence halls.
After you check in, if you're coming from out of town and you check in your student for that 2-hour window and you happen to stay at a hotel, then are you allowed to see your student the following day before you leave? Or is basically that's it at that 2-hour window? Like it's bye. For your student. See ya.
Dr. Dean, I'll let you take that one.
This one was for you, Mr. McPherson.
Well, I mean, of course you can come to the campus and your son or daughter can come outside and visit you, but we won't be allowing guests on campus, outside guests.
Okay, so I can maybe see him the next day before I leave. It would just be outside of campus.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
There was one question that I received privately regarding international students. Should international students get tested at home or wait till they return to campus?
So they would need to work with their embassy if there's any requirements for them to get tested in their home country. There is no requirement for the university for them to get tested prior to coming to campus, as they will get tested once they arrive to campus.
Thank you.
So in reference to COVID testing, we live out of state. Would it be beneficial for us to test? I know you just answered that, but would it be beneficial for us to test prior to us going down, because it's a hike to get there and say, for whatever reason, you could have come in contact with somebody on our travels, and then the test is now positive. You understand what I'm saying? So like, should we test before we come down to Charlotte and then test again once we get there?
Nurse Jones, you want to answer that?
Hi, that's really up to you for us tested before. But once, as we stress, that once the student comes to campus, they will be tested again. So it's really up to you if you want to get them tested before they come, and then if they're negative then, and hopefully they'll be negative when they come to campus. But if they're positive and they live within 200-mile radius, we will, send you back home, or we'll just, talk about it. If you're over 200 miles, you probably put in isolation.
So one of the reasons we can't advise you, I guess, definitively around this is, remember that it takes about 4 days after a potential exposure for a person's test to come back positive. There's a time period, the isolation, not isolation, but incubation period, when the virus builds up in a person's system. So if your student had a big going away party before they left to come to Charlotte, and that was, fewer than 4 days ago, the test might show negative before you leave, but positive when you get here. But if your student has been quarantining at home and observing safe behaviors and procedures, then it would not hurt for you to have your student take a test before coming to Charlotte. But because of all of the variables between your home and our campus, we just decided not to require that test, but it would be helpful for you to know.
Okay. Thank you for those responses. Are there any additional questions that may not have been covered this evening in the presentation?
I have a question.
Okay.
So I was listening earlier about the option of the white cohort and being solely virtual, and being that it would be offered to students that either have disabilities or health conditions, and then also on a case-to-case basis. I just wanted a better understanding on the case-to-case basis. Will I have that option to go virtual if I do want to remain at home? I know that it's case to case basis. So what happens if they deny my case? But I also see that I'll be living in Mosaic, which will be full capacity. So those are kind of my concerns. If you could better explain that.
I think this was Justice. I don't know if you are Justice. Justice, it's Dr. Morgan. And so when we're saying case by case basis, we're not saying that immediately we're going to deny any of those additional requests to come in. We just are being making sure that the particular strands that we identified at the beginning for those white cohorts, when they when you send requests to the health center, or you have some reasons for ADA, or you are studying elsewhere and need to have your internship there, the other cases are not the automatic cases that will be denied. We're just putting all of those into this particular category. So you are encouraged to send in those requests, and don't think that any of those requests, or all of those requests for that matter, are going to be denied. And I put an email address in the chat earlier. Did you happen to see it?
I did, thank you.
Okay, yeah, please feel free to send those requests in. We do understand all of your concerns, and that there is a desire to still come to the institution, but to remain virtual for the spring semester.
I'm sorry, I had a question. I don't know if it was already mentioned, but when will new room assignments be sent out?
Yes, we're probably going to start sending out new room assignments next week.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question from the YouTube comments were for students who have jobs or internships in Charlotte. How are we? How is university going to kind of handle that in terms of ensuring that they are able to kind of be able to go there when needed?
So we'll be working with the Division of Student Affairs and our Career Readiness and Postgraduate Development Office to coordinate with the City of Charlotte, wherever your internship might be, so that we are making sure that all protocols are being followed. So just stay tuned, and we'll have more information for those particular students who have internships within the City of Charlotte. You may have to go through some additional testing, but we're not going to say that none of the students who have internships in the City of Charlotte should not be able to take advantage of those opportunities.
Great questions so far. I see that a few people are starting to drop off, which is 100% okay if you don't have any more questions. But are there any other questions for our administrators that haven't been asked during the presentation so far?
Yes, I have a question. I'm asking about the Bull Break Day 1 and 2 on March the 9th and March the 10th. I see that they have that Monday where they have to attend the class on March the 8th from the weekend. And is that Bull Break Day considered a student work day, or is it a completely day off?
For the Bull Breaks, March 9th and 10th, there will be no classes in session, but we will have those days set aside for JCSU student engagement opportunities or student engagement activities. There will be no classes on those 2 days.
If I could just add, this is President Armbruster. Those were designed primarily to allow students and the faculty to kind of release themselves from the stresses. We are strongly discouraging students from traveling during that time because we do not want students to go out and then come back and travel and necessarily contract the virus. So based on our conversation with campuses that have opened, this is going to be hard. People ask the question, can I visit my roommate down the hall? Can I do that? We recognize that opening up in a safe environment is going to be hard. This is no guarantee that we're not going to have any outbreaks. We're trying to mitigate those circumstances. So another mitigation effort is that once your students get here, we really, really, really want them to stay here. We can't lock them in the room and keep them here, but we're going to do everything we can to encourage them to stay here. So we would ask parents to help us out and encourage your students to stay here, particularly during those mental health days. That's going to be a day where we're going to do some campus community activities to give the students a break from the stresses. And this is going to be stressful period for them to get a little break from the stresses. So this is not a mini spring break. It's certainly not intended to be that. I just wanted to emphasize that point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that question. I'm seeing a few more questions in the chat, which is asking about student athletes and whether they will be assigned a new room once they return in January from the rooms they're going to get once they get here in a few weeks.
Yes, once the students come here in a few weeks, they will all reside in New Residence Hall for that period. When they come back in January, they will go to their assigned room for the spring.
Thank you.
Can I add to that also? So with us coming back and having to stay in New Res, will we stay with our team members or because you said that they're
Yes. You will
Okay.
be staying with your team members, both the men's team and the women's team. You'll be staying with your team members. And we're not asking you to bring a lot of stuff during that period. Bring minimum stuff so that, when you go back for Christmas holidays and you come back after Christmas, then you will be here for the duration.
Okay.
What's included in the dorms? Like, should I bring like a TV? Like what?
Yeah. You have your bed, you have your dresser, you have your desk, your chair. Those are the normal furniture items that's in the residence halls. So, but things and items that you want to bring, we're going to include a list of items to bring in your room assignment letter. So once you get your room assignment letter, look at the what to bring list. And we, again, asking, to bring minimum items. But yes, you can have a television, you can have a refrigerator, those things. So look for your what to bring list and the items to bring.
Can I bring? Can we bring microwaves?
No.
Okay.
No microwaves. We have them in the residence hall.
Can we bring a Keurig?
Yes, you can bring a Keurig.
Do the microwaves, you said they come with the room?
No, it doesn't come in the room. We have them in common areas in the buildings.
Will those be clean?
Yes, ma'am. We certainly will.
Is there a time that it closes?
You're asking what the area where you can use the microwave. There will be limited times. Yeah, it will be limited usage.
In terms for I think the cohorts for for like the white and gold, when is the kind of deadline to either know exactly which cohort you are part of, and so that everyone can know exactly what their plan is for next semester?
So registration is scheduled to begin on November 16th for a priority registration for seniors and graduate students. And then 2 days later, January 18th, registration will be open for all students. I would ask that if you want to submit on the case-by-case basis, as we indicated for the white cohort, that you send a request no later than November 16th, since registration will begin at that particular time. Otherwise, students could still begin registering for the gold and blue cohorts, and we can still change them over or change their schedules with the help of their advisors to the white cohort. Every class is going to have not only the face-to-face component, but every class will have a virtual component to it. So you can begin your registration on the 16th, and a decision can be made to move a student from a gold or a blue cohort to the white cohort for each of those classes that they are scheduled to be in.
An additional question that I have from YouTube, questions about dining services. We spoke about the food trucks as well as the facelift to the dining facility, but a student on YouTube wants to know, will we allow the food delivery rideshare programs to happen on campus? So will they still be able to utilize Uber Eats, DoorDash, and the local pizza restaurants?
Yep, we will still allow food delivery. However, we will still practice the same guidelines that we've had in the past, where delivery will have to happen, the exchange will have to happen at the front guard gate. So no delivery to individual residence halls.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dean.
You're welcome.
What's the policy on self-defense items like pepper spray, tasers, and stuff?
In the student handbook, it lists items that are prohibited on campus, even those self-defense items. And so I do want to encourage you to make sure that you are reading through the student handbook so you know exactly what items, even those self-defense items, are permissible and not permissible on campus. And if you have any follow-up questions regarding those items, you can reach out to campus police and speak to our chief of police, Chief Cherry.
Hello, this is Nadia. Like Exodus, I had a question about the study abroad that was supposed to take place on last semester with Dr. T. And I was just wondering, how exactly is that going to get taken care of? Is that I know it's probably not possible, but what is the update on that?
We're looking into other options, Naya, as far as study abroad opportunities. And so we have to think about how we're going to reimagine what study abroad looks like, including taking advantage of some virtual reality resources that we have. And I know you mentioned Dr. T. We do have our Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, who is Dr. Matthew DeForest, who might also be able to provide some insight.
All right, so for the students who are scheduled to go to Cape Verde, that's for who that's for contacting?
Well, Dr. Matthew DeForest is the Dean of the College of Arts and Letters, where Dr. T resides. As far as study abroad opportunities, there will be no international travel at this point. So we're looking at other options so that we reimagine what a study abroad opportunity will look like for not only those of you who are going to go to Cape Verde, but others who also had some study abroad opportunities coming up in the spring. And Dr. DeForest, if you could add some additional information, that would be great.
Sure. It's an unfortunate response I have to give right now. International travel is severely limited, not only from the university standpoint in terms of an abundance of caution. Nations across the world are sharply limiting who can and cannot enter the country. And it's an unfortunate truth that flights from the United States are not being as welcomed across the world right now at this time. While I would love to tell you that there's great hope at being able to send people over to Cape Verde, at this stage, it does not look like that is going to be possible, that the Cape Verdean government would not permit us to arrive.
All right. So in that case, who would we speak to about refunds for this matter, since it's not looking possible for us to do this travel?
If you were to send me an email to M as in Mary, D as in David, E as in Edward, F as in Frank, ORR, E as in Edward, S as in Sam, T as in Tom, at jcsu.edu. I will make sure within 48 hours to get back with you about what procedures we should be doing to enable you to get that. I will also, here in the next moment or two, put that email address into the chat. But it's mdeforest@jcsu.edu.
So to be clear, this is Exodus. So to be clear, the trip is canceled. Is that what you're saying?
It has not been formally canceled yet, but it is almost certain to be canceled.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for those additional questions. We've dropped to 78 participants. Just want to give everyone an opportunity to ask any question that you feel has not already been covered this evening. Once again, this presentation will be available on our YouTube page at JCSU Student Affairs. You can also get the question and answer portion of this presentation at JCSU Student Affairs as well. Are there any more questions that you feel may not have been asked tonight that you all want to get off your chest?
I kind of have a question, but I don't know whether it pertains to the spring semester. So, and I saw it in the chat too, but for those students who were unable to get a tour of the campus, will there be a tour when we get back?
I had the same question because I've never been on campus before.
Yes, Miss Aria, we can arrange a socially distanced tour, personalize it just for you, as well as you, Miss Mariah. So yes, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and once you get back on campus and you're cleared and everything, we will schedule you a tour, so this way you'll know exactly where to go for your classes, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Another question in the chat asking about parking on campus, how that'll be different from previous years.
Yep. So parking will not be different than previous years. And so in the student handbook, I know I keep referencing that because I want to make sure students are aware of the student handbook and its contents. And so if there's for our first year students, if there's a request to the car on campus, if you can please send your request to Dean of Students at jcsu.edu, and then the Dean of Students office will respond to you with a decision regarding parking. Upperclassmen, you do not need to put a request in, as you can park on campus, but for first year students, you have to put a request in, and there are some guidelines that is outlined in the student handbook for first year students to park on campus.
This is President Armbruster. I noticed in the chat the question about a tour has stirred a good question, particularly for those parents of students who have never been able to get to the campus. I think, team, we're going to have to look at a way to try to deal with that. So we should, to the parent or whomever asked that question, those are great questions. And for those of you who have not had an opportunity to be on campus, as part of your onboarding or orientation or within that 2 hours, we're going to have to figure out a way to do that. So let us get back to you on that. Thanks for the question, and we appreciate it. But that's a very good point. You should get an opportunity to see the campus. So thank you for that question.
All right. Are there any other questions that we'd like to address this evening? Thank you all so much for being patient so far. While you are gathering your possible questions, I do want to take this opportunity to remind you that tomorrow is indeed election day. So we want you to make sure that you get out and vote if you did not participate in early voting. We've been running a Bull Rush the Polls campaign via social media. So you've probably seen a lot of familiar faces on the screen right now on Twitter and Instagram encouraging you to go vote. So if you haven't participated in early voting, please, please, please go out to the polls tomorrow, November 3rd, and wait. Wait as long as it takes to wait. As long as you're in line, no one can turn you around. But make sure that you participate in voting tomorrow. Are there any additional questions? I'm going to check the chat one last time. I'm not seeing any additional questions. If there are none, are there any final comments from our university leadership?
Mr. Dorsey, I'd like to just say a closing remark if I Again, this is Clarence Armbrust, the president. I just want to thank each and every one of you, to the parents and the students who came on tonight. As we said, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we have as safe an environment as we can for your students. We miss them terribly. We'd like them here, but we want them here safely. And we're going to do everything we can, but it's going to be a community event. This is a socially responsible activity that all of us are going to have to really buy into if we want to make this work. One thing I'll just note to the parents and to some of the students, you may have friends who are at some schools, probably HBCUs, and what we've noticed, it is not been unnoticed by some, is that particularly at many HBCUs, you've seen a very high compliance rate with the rules and haven't seen as many outbreaks as at other institutions. And we believe that's part of our special sauce, that we really are a family and we're here to take care of each other. So, we're looking for our students, our faculty and staff to really buy into the social compact. We really mean that. If you're taking care of yourself, that means you're taking care of your neighbor, your fellow student, your colleague, whatever. So we're really going to make sure that we embrace the fact that we're in this together, and that if we all do our parts, we're not going to eliminate it. We're not going to eliminate it. There will probably be cases, but we can certainly minimize the cases and make sure that it does not interrupt the operations of the university. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank the staff who's worked so hard. You'll see some of the effects of their work when you get back here. They worked extremely hard to make this as a safe environment. And I just want to say to the parents, we're going to do our best to make sure that when you drop your student off here, you're dropping them off in as safe an environment as is humanly possible. So thank you all very much. And please make sure you follow those additional the town halls that were listed by Mr. Dorsey. They'll be on various subjects. And please keep the communication lines open. We've given some very good questions, and we'll be adjusting some of our activities based on the questions. So thank you all and have a great night. And don't forget to vote tomorrow if you haven't.
Thank you so much, President Armbrust. That is everything for the evening. What I'm going to do is share the screen one more time as people leave the call. And I'm just going to leave it on the additional town hall form just in case anybody needs to grab that information. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us. And I will drop some emails in the chat at this current time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good night.